Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Innovation Deciphered. Today is a truly memorable episode. I'm lucky to be joined by Drew Ritchie, who's a guy I've known for many years, who has just completed the exit of a business he founded only in 2020 during lockdown. A remarkable journey and a really inspiring story. So I really hope you watch the whole thing from start to finish because it's really fantastic. Enjoy. Hi Drew, thanks for coming in. Drew, I know we've known each other a long time, but some of our viewers, although you are illustrious, won't know your backstory. So perhaps to get going, you could just get our viewers and listeners a little bit of a background about how you got to where you are now. Just succinctly, then we're going to delve into the depths.
Thanks, Tim. So, chartered civil engineer, and from Glasgow I did a master's at Heriot-Watt. Fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineers back in 2003, so a long time ago. Luckily, I've been involved as an engineering consultant for probably about a third of my career. Another third of my career I've been in the contracting space, and about another third I've either been client side or on the kind of operational side. So I've seen all sides of this kind of infrastructure space and been involved in most infrastructure projects in terms of the asset class, from whether it's highways, railways, light rail, heavy rail, metros, to water, and more recently into fibre optics, which is where I did my second startup.
Brilliant. So, Drew, I first part of my career was different but similar to yours. And I'm always fascinated by the transition from corporate life into the entrepreneurial life. So how did that happen for you?
So for me, I've now got 34 or so years experience, and the one thing that I hadn't done, which I kind of wanted to do, was that entrepreneurial piece where you kind of set up your own business, you found it, and then you effectively go through that phase to kind of start up, scale up, accelerate with some sort of exit at some point in the future, which is usually, give or take, up to 8 years from founding a business, if that's the strategy. And that's really where I was at, was that I kind of got involved in water with then Infra Capital and Morgan Stanley and Veolia when they owned Affinity Water, and I loved every minute of it, and the business was very successful. When I was there, I kind of was brought in to transform the business from an underperforming asset into a high-performing asset, which it achieved during my kind of tenure there. Because the business was sold by Infra Capital and Morgan Stanley at a significant valuation above what they thought they were going to get, Infracap asked me to go and do something similar with their fibre to the premise company called GigaClear. And they bought GigaClear from its original shareholders around about May 2018. And that was really my first foray into kind of entrepreneurship, if you like. Yeah. And really, full thanks to Infra Capital for bringing me in to kind of help accelerate that change. And I also got involved in one of the huge bids for Scotland, and it was rolling out fibre to the premise across the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, and unfortunately that didn't work out. But the team that had been assembled to deliver that R100 project went off to basically set up what became Up Corporation Limited during the course of 2020, where we, during COVID, all worked from home, we didn't earn a penny, and we sought about trying to create a business plan from nothing, trying to create a strategy whereby we could prove to a potential investor that we could deliver if the funding was forthcoming. Four of us co-founded the business. I had a chief financial officer who had a proven track record both in telco and elsewhere. I had a chief technology officer again who had a proven track record of over 30 years in telco, had worked for Marconi and BT and others, and my chief operating officer also with BT and with a company called KCOM Communications up in Hull. And that combination of the four of us with our kind of experience second time round proved to be the kind of, I suppose, through the investor lens, the core of a team that could accept funding and actually be trusted to deliver, given the track record that we all had created. So therefore, for us, it was about getting a business plan that was credible, getting the documentation behind the business plan to prove how we could deploy the capital to ultimately maximise shareholder return at a future exit point. During the course of 2020, we went off and found a number of potential investors, including a VC firm.
Can I just ask a sort of supplementary question there? Because I know a lot of our listeners and viewers are interested in raising capital at that seed stage.
Yeah.
I mean, how much effort did that take? How many pitches did you have to do after you've just assembled all this compelling information?
So ultimately, we created the business plan, which was predominantly a series of financial spreadsheets, which went into every single thing that you would expect in terms of creating a business, including all your CapEx programs, in terms of the rollout of the fibre to the premise, but also included all your OpEx requirements in terms of what was your organisational structure going to be, when were people going to come in, how they were going to come in. So basically we had a whole 8-year plan, and that was basically down to the kind of nth degree. So year one we knew what capital we required, year 2, 3, 4 all the way through, and obviously the capital that you deploy in that particular construction heavy business, at some point you've got to pay it back. So then it was about when are you going to deploy your in-house premise, which was basically broadband. So it was a kind of a box inside the customer's wall that would then talk to a router, and then the router was the thing that would provide the broadband to the premise. And basically each and every customer that you got on your network would pay a subscription per month, which we all pay to BT, Virgin Media or others.
Yeah.
But ultimately we had created with up.com a vehicle that would take on the kind of traditional incumbents. So our model was to basically find an area that was poorly underserved, and to basically be an agitator to the big players. Clearly we had to kind of get through our due diligence, so therefore the due diligence was the kind of how you're going to do it, and not only how but where you're going to do it, and obviously what capital you need to deploy in that process. Now, we were lucky in getting LetterOne, but LetterOne were a number of other companies that we spoke to. We spoke to 3 originally, and each said that they would put in the £1 billion to enable us to reach 1 million premises over a 5-year time period. So that was when the CapEx was required. And basically after that 5 years, we would then become effectively self-sustaining, where the number of customers that you had on board were providing all the revenue that you would then need, and then the payback would then happen. So, and there were a number of levers that we needed to deploy over that period of time to maximise the investor rate of return, such that you could then, at some sort of exit in the future, both the leadership and management team could get a kind of return on that investment, and all the shareholders that we had in the business.
So just make sure I understood those numbers correctly. You did 3 pitches to get
yeah.
£1 billion commitment.
Correct.
And that sounds fairly extraordinary to me, that you only needed, it was a massive amount of money for a startup, which wasn't in the super tech space. Well, it's a massive amount of money for a startup.
It was.
You took 3 pitches. It's astounding.
That's all it took, because we had a credible business plan, which was due diligence by experts in the
Yes.
technology space, i.e. management consultants in that space, but also by one of your preeminent top four finance houses.
So the founding partners,
Yeah.
I guess shareholders, the original shareholders, created the business plan. And was it the investors who did the due diligence? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the investors did the due diligence. We had to create a plan that others would then validate and verify that the four individuals that put the business plan together could be trusted to deliver and
Yeah.
require whatever capital it required in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, as you went from startup with nothing, we had no processes, no procedures, nothing at all, to a business that basically would scale up and then accelerate. And that meant that you needed to, for all of us, well, for the four of us, it was second time round.
Yeah.
So we all used our collective experiences, which was probably about 30 years each. And we brought in another 3 people into the kind of management team, leadership team, to kind of crack on with what needed to be done. So my leadership team had 160 years combined experience when we started off.
Well, I mean, I'm from my own experience as being an entrepreneur, but what we see with our clients and communities that we're in, it's one of the most astounding money-raising stories I've ever heard.
And it was during COVID.
Yeah, well,
During COVID. So we raised the finance during the latter part of 2020 when people were all working from home. We set the business up. First funding came in on the 21st of January 2021, and off we went deploying the capital.
And so from getting the first money in January 2021, from the four of you decided to do it, what was the time frame for that?
So we started the conversations with private equity firms around June 2020, because we needed to create the business plan, and then we needed to speak to others that might want to come on our entrepreneurial journey. Because ultimately you had 4 key members of what was the management team, which I coined leadership team really, and that was effectively the C-suite. So we needed some additional members other than just the 4. So we needed a chief commercial officer, which in construction is very different to what it would be in kind of retail space, where chief commercial officer is somebody who's really more about sales and marketing. So that's the customer side of things. I also needed to bring on board a chief regulatory risk officer because compliance was really, really important.
So from a blank sheet of paper to getting the first tranche of cash, that sounded about 7 months. Did I get the time all right? Amazing. So we're now in January 2021. You've got enough money to keep. You've got some oxygen now to take the 4 or 5 or 6 of you by then forward. So what was the next year like as you developed?
So part of my role as a chief executive up was, I just remember the first conversation I had with my chairman, a chap called Robert Easton, who's formerly from Carlisle, one of the PE firms, or renowned PE firms, and his advice was treat every pound as though it was your own. So any investment decision that you make, you must own that decision, but also it's about maximising every pound that you invest to maximise any future return. And if you wouldn't spend it yourself, don't spend it. So if it's going to propel the business forward, then that's the right investment strategy. Whereas if it's not, don't invest. So therefore we didn't invest in lots of things because it wouldn't make, to use an old analogy, the kind of rowing boat go faster. So everything was about deploying capital at pace, safely, efficiently, effectively, but to use technology and innovation to really drive the business forward, which meant that we had 130 people by the end of the first year, and a lot of those came from the armed forces.
And were these predominantly blue collar, or were they a mixture of indoors?
So it's a mixture.
People?
So across the various structures within the business, so we operated a kind of a matrix management structure, but ultimately a lot of the people that were going into people's premises to basically put their Wi-Fi in, we had to trust those individuals and make sure that they were of the utmost integrity at the end of the day, because ultimately the brand is the most important thing, and therefore if we could trust those individuals to go to customers' premises, then that was a great thing, really. So a lot of the people in terms of those customer facing roles came from the ex-military.
And so presumably if you got to, because customer service is so crucial,
yeah,
you must have had a whole customer service team who were training these people, getting the feedback, making sure everything was going right.
Yep. So we had a whole head of customer service, and she and the team did a fantastic job. That team, there aren't many organisations who achieve a 4.9 on Trustpilot for 11 months. The 12th month prior to that was a 4.8. So really during 2022 and 2023, the business was being propelled on customer excellence in customer service and making sure that the products that we were offering customers were of the best quality. And that was partly to do with learning from my experience with GigaClear, and also the feedback we were getting from Virgin Media's customers and also BT's customers about the poor broadband service that they were getting, and therefore how could we make ourselves different, how could we be attractive to others. And clearly customer service and customer excellence and dependability and reliability were key products, and then we knew if we smashed those, and we were really strong on our ESG front, certainly on the kind of social side of things, where we did a lot in the communities and made sure that we were always visible and doing charity things or whatever, then the brand was really getting to be well known across the region for excellence.
So I can see exactly how, obviously superb customer care, getting ESG right,
Yeah.
but how did your marketing work to leverage those great service and the great technical products you've got? How did you get to the customers?
So if we wind the clock back now to 2021 and the early part of 2021, and maybe just a little bit before that in December 2020, we were trying to co-create the brand, and we were trying to work out what the business was going to be called. And we worked with a company called Interbrand, one of the world's renowned kind of branding agencies. And what we were trying to do then was to kind of create a brand that would resonate with people in the future. So then it was about the brand being inextricably linked to your culture and also customers, and they would recognise the brand. But it was carefully thought out back in January through to June. We spoke to Mrs. Up in Illinois, and we got hold of successfully up.com, and we purchased that, and then we launched the up.com on the 2nd of June 2020, and up.com was a brand that we went through quite a few different things around naming and so forth, and just colours and all those kind of great things that got there. But ultimately, part of that was about creating a vision for the business, a mission for the business, a purpose for the business, and a value set for the business, because ultimately it was about the staff and that link between the staff and what we did with our customers, and we wanted to make sure that that came across on the website. And that website, to answer your question, originally that's where all our products were on, was basically the website, and they were being updated continually as we were getting feedback from customers every single day and every single week and every single month.
And so how did you drive traffic to the website?
So we did that through a number of ways. So we did we employed up to 15 field sales executives. So some of us would know those as people who would knock on somebody's door during the day and say, have you thought about your broadband? Who is your broadband? When's your broadband service due up? So we did that, and very successfully. We also dropped leaflets. We also did direct mail marketing.
Still works.
And still works. Yes, still works. That whole social piece I talked about in terms of ESG was around communities, local sponsorships. So we sponsored local netball, local cricket, local football, local rugby. We did a lot of charity raising and fundraising. And a lot of those things in terms of just being local and being seen. And
were you in all the local Facebook groups?
we were in all the local Facebook groups, and we were. I got to know a lot of the MPs and so forth. So we did everything through the MPs as best we could. But again, it was about just that local interface, employing locally and deploying locally.
Just quickly on your brand, I mean, there is a large property company called Up. Was there any problem with that?
No, because Up was the kind of university's property partnership or something like that, I think,
Something
from memory.
like that, yes.
We were Up Corporation Limited. And I managed to get hold of Up.com through a conversation with Mrs. Up over in Illinois. We found her through a branding agency, or a kind of, not a branding agency, through a kind of specialist company that somehow tracks down who owns URLs, and they found and managed to get hold of Mrs. Up, who was willing to sell the business, and it stopped us. Get on Up or what .co.uk was something we were looking at, but to get Up.com really was a 3-letter URL. It was memorable, and we could really use Get on Up. We could use so many things within the Up.
Yes.
Branding.
Amazing. I mean, you were, well, yeah. I wonder how well Mrs. Up did out of that. I hope she did well.
She did. We didn't overpay. We paid a reasonable sum, and let's just say we were very happy with the deal that we got.
Great. That's a good story. So this is trend. So we've got the thing going. We've got sales. We've got customers. We've got great feedback. We're now into 2022, and now it's about further scaling the build out and customer acquisition and developing the thing. So, and you had this. You're going to try and sell or exit in 2028.
Yeah. So the original plan.
And then what happened in 2028?
Yeah. So the original plan was to sell in 2028, but actually we had to sell last year. The shareholder that we had chosen to go with, they were a company called LetterOne, and LetterOne is a PE firm based out of London and also Luxembourg, but viewed by the British government as having Russian backing. The British government wrote to myself back in May of 2022 and said that they were calling the acquisition of Up by LetterOne for review.
Ouch.
By the end of 2022, LetterOne were told to sell the business as it was deemed critical national infrastructure, and under the new National Security and Investment Bill, they were to divest of the business during the course of 2023. That came as a shock to everybody at the end of December 2022 because we were accelerating the build. LetterOne continued to invest through the whole of 2023 as we were going through the whole sale process, engaging an investment bank, getting the whole sale process kicking off, getting interested parties involved in the business, but performance was number one. Our performance every week and every month was under review, not only by LetterOne because they were either going to divest the business, i.e. close it down, so we had a Project X, or they were going to push on and invest through 2023. They invested through the course of 2023 a huge sum of money by any stage because that was the requirement we needed to deliver a business plan, and they trusted in me and my leadership team to deliver. And deliver, we did.
Brilliant.
Every month we went by, we outperformed because we knew that the interested parties and also the individuals within the business had put their trust in me and my leadership team to get the backing from LetterOne to enable a sale to take place. And ultimately, on the 3rd of September, we sold the business to Virgin Media for a 9-figure sum.
Wow. Amazing.
Which, unfortunately, anything under my control I could deal with. Anything that was outside my control, like a government intervention, was outside my remit. But me and my leadership team are very proud of everything we did, all the achievements we made, and to also go through something that you've co-found, you start up, scale up, accelerate, and then sell, even though it was earlier than we wanted, made us all very, very proud of what we achieved. And to get a Net Promoter Score of plus 84 in August was one of our kind of accolades and one of our attributes in terms of our employee culture was an employee Net Promoter Score of plus 58, and plus 30 is excellent, but in August we got plus 58. So the culture in the business was fantastic. Everybody who put their trust and so forth into the business, trust was gained, as was respect, and we delivered. Our shareholders were delighted with the return they got, and it's just a shame that a number of them have been made redundant since then. But that's part of the integration phase up into an organisation the likes of which was Virgin Media, which is the second biggest telco in the UK.
Well, Drew, that's an amazing journey. I'm sure there's probably 1, 2 or 3 more episodes that we could film. An amazing journey. Thank you very much for coming in, and
thank you very much for listening.
Thanks for everyone for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly did myself. Thank you.